One of the main trans topics that I have been dealing with ever since I started transitioning and being like on this journey is just the sense of like running behind in life, right? I'm turning 30 this year and it feels like I need to have my life figured out and be on the same level as like the average cis woman in their 30s. But that's not really how transitioning works, especially, you know, for me. I didn't really have like a life before starting to transition. I wasn't really doing anything with my life because any accomplishment that I would have had or wouldn't have felt like mine. I wasn't really passionate about anything growing up. Anytime I wanted to do something, I quickly lost interest in doing it because having severe gender dysphoria actually makes you severely depressed. It came out with 22, and then you go on this entire journey to just figure yourself out, accept the fact that you're trans, that this is not a phase that you wake up from. You know, you're going on this journey in order for the possibility for your life to turn around eventually, because you just know right now that you're in a position where you're not really doing a lot of things with your life, but at least it feels familiar, right? I was just on autopilot my entire life, and then I started transitioning, and then this new mountain of things opened up. Not only how do I even start transitioning, how do I accept the fact that I'm transitioning, how do I come out to people, will this ever go anywhere, will I ever actually pass? How do I start medically transitioning? How do I find a therapist who's willing to help me? And like that already consumed many years. And with me, with my transition, I didn't have like an immediate drive to actually work on my life. I was still depressed. I was still struggling. I was just like, well, might as well give this a shot. Might as well have like something to focus on. And every single roadblock, it felt so devastating. And now after I've been medically transitioning, I've been on HRT since 25, so almost 5 years. Have like, 2 years of voice training and I still don't pass. I still don't know how to do makeup and I'm still struggling with like my appearance and so on. And I still have like all of these things. And then it's like, what do I even do with my life beyond that? I never really figured out the things that I'm genuinely passionate about. I never completed university. I never got like a degree in anything. I never have like a skill that I developed in this time where I was just struggling and being depressed. The societal things that are going on that are taking up energy, that are taking up space. Maybe there are issues with your family of you being trans. You have to deal with so many things just because you're trans and wanting to go on this transitioning journey. But I feel like every single step that I take into this direction of becoming myself, living as my authentic self, helps me have the motivation and energy, not a lot of energy, but a little bit of like a boost when it comes to other aspects of my life. When it comes to having a goal in life, a purpose in life. And I think that a lot of trans people are dealing with similar things where I wish I transitioned earlier. I wish I had like the fortunate genetics so I don't have to put in so much effort in order to pass. I wish I had like an easier time with like voice training. I wish I had a less severe level of gender dysphoria, one that isn't as paralyzing. And that creates a lot of resentment, not just a lot of like internalized transphobia and like hatred, but also a lot of envy. Not just gender envy for those that are cis and don't have to deal with it, but also trans people who you think have it easier. Like for me, I had severe levels of dysphoria to the point where I needed to have bottom surgery for me to have like a relationship with someone. There are a lot of trans women who are going to hear that I had bottom surgery and then it's like, oh, you're so far ahead of me in this transition. Maybe they're in a place where getting bottom surgery just costs like $50,000 or something. Maybe it's in an area where, gender affirming care is demonized so much that it's getting to the point where you can't even access it anymore. And all that just to be yourself, get to a level where you can live your life as yourself. But then it doesn't fix like all of your problems, right? Transitioning doesn't give me back my childhood. Whereas I have like my 30s ahead of myself. The longer you're stuck in this state of just existing, the more it feels difficult to get yourself to even start going on this journey. Because I also had like this aspect of like, well, okay, maybe I'm going to like start transitioning and everything is going to work out and things are going to be good. And then it's like, why did I wait this long? Why did I just like needlessly suffer for so many years? There was also an aspect, I don't know if anyone can like relate to this, the fear of like things actually turning around and being good. If you want to come out to your family and you're constantly worried and then they're actually supportive, and it's like, why was I worried? You know, coming out to my friends back in the day, and it's like, well, why don't they just hate me? And I think that like the longer you're stuck in this stage, in this phase of like, well, I don't want to come out, I don't want to know what is awaiting at the other end, I don't know what is like happening at this point. I've been suffering with this for so long, I might as well just like, you know, do another like 10 years and then I'll just fade away. It feels like you're just not living as yourself, but you're familiar with this. And at some point you just think that like the years pass, everything, you know, moves on so quickly. There isn't really a point. And it's like everything that you do in order to break away from this and live as your authentic self actually makes the time that you have remaining, it just makes it more worthwhile. The relationships that you're finding as your authentic self will be more meaningful. The time that you're spending is more impactful. The obsession with youth really isn't doing us any favors. It feels like you're being punished for growing old. You know how like cis women are getting punished for aging? And then it's like, okay, wow, you're transitioning and you're, you know, becoming a woman. And then it's like, well, you're in your 40s and you're being told by society that nobody wants women who are that old, which is not really helping you a lot. Obviously, HRT going through this, having estrogen, it kind of de-ages you, but it's still brutal. Like I'm a teenager sometimes. I mean, I have this too. Like I didn't really get to enjoy my teenage years and my early 20s and so on, and it feels like me turning 30 is on the same level as, you know, cis people turning 20. You have your whole life ahead of you, so many possibilities. You're just going through puberty, finishing all of these changes and so on, just going through the stage of like figuring yourself out, who you are as the gender that you actually are instead of the mask that you are pretending to be. And it feels kind of heartbreaking when I see a bunch of like trans people feel envious of those that are, you know, younger than them, having better resources than them, starting transitioning earlier. And then also trans people who will support puberty blockers getting cut and, you know, gender affirming care for trans youth getting demonized and so on because, well, they didn't have that growing up. There's also like this aspect of like Blair White essentially climbing up the ladder and then pulling it up behind her. When you're going through this process, obviously society makes it hard. It sucks that you are trans, that you even have to deal with this. It sucks that you couldn't start sooner, that you didn't have the resources sooner. But on the other hand, the fact that you have like this pain, it should be used in order to help the next generation of trans people so they don't have to suffer like you. That is why I am so vocal about trans youth. That is why I'm calling out all of like these things. I didn't have a person that I could trust. I didn't have the resources to know what was going on. Like I didn't even know that I was different until I was like 14 and found out that boys don't actually want to be girls every single day of their life, cry themselves to sleep because they are not getting to live as a girl. I didn't have a trusting person. You know, you see in the States, they're pushing laws to be like, teachers need to out their, like if a child is trans to their parents. Maybe the parents aren't safe to come out to. Maybe there's a teacher that, you know, a child is trusting this information with. Maybe they don't even know what being trans is, but they still, you know, feel like they can trust a teacher more than their parent. Like, it's just making children scared of just opening up about being trans. You know, if you're questioning yourself, maybe you don't even know that you're trans, but you're just like in this journey of like figuring yourself out. Maybe you're non-binary, maybe you're gender fluid. Like, there's so many possibilities, but you can only do this if you can safely explore these things. But no, society makes it so difficult for us to be ourselves, for us to open up about these things. They want us to be scared. They want us to be stuck in the closet. They want us to hate ourselves so much, and also, like, you know, trans people who are visible so much that they just get depressed and end themselves. And if you call it out, then it's a bad look for the trans community, because you're actually throwing back the trans community 10 years. I wish I could throw back the trans community 10 years, because we had a way better time back then. Back during the time where cis people were still gaslighting us, pretending that they were actually supportive. You know, they're just asking questions. They're just opening up a debate. But like, it took me a really long time to like break free from that. And the more like transphobia is being pushed, the more you reject that you're trans, the more that you hate that you're trans, the more that you don't want to admit that you are just like other trans people, the more resentful and hateful people get, the more they isolate themselves. And I know it's hard, I know it's difficult for someone to like break free from an environment that is so hostile. I'm still figuring myself out, I'm still having things to work on, and this is just, you know, my transitioning journey, the aspect of me being trans. There are like all these other aspects of like, you know, career, the fact that I can't just like go outside as myself, that I'm like still worried about this, that I still have like this weird imposter syndrome because I don't put in enough effort in order to pass. It makes it difficult to like live as your authentic self, and then you have like the additional worry of like going out there, having someone perceive you as trans and get hate crime. And it makes me wish I came out earlier, when we still had like a little bit more rights, less of a target on our back, because maybe then I could have like enjoyed more of some peace and quiet, even though, you know, transphobia lingers everywhere. Yeah, being trans sucks because it feels like it sets you back in life so many years. And the longer it takes for you to start transitioning and be at a point where you're more comfortable with yourself, the bigger of a setback you have. But I'm gonna be real, I didn't like myself 10 years ago. Didn't even like myself 5 years ago. Didn't like spending time with people. Now I'm kind of at a point where, you know, I am looking forward to going to TwitchCon, spending time with people, making memories as myself. Still not perfect, but at least, you know, I'm at a point where, you know, things are looking a little bit better. You know, if you're trans, you're under constant pressure, like have everything figured out already and like do all of these things. Sometimes you do just gotta survive long enough for you to get to a point where you can start going on this journey. I'm going to do my best to be visible and educate as many people as possible, because what else am I going to do? The only thing that we have is our voice, and even though we don't have the biggest platforms, I hope we're going to get to a point where we don't have to fight this hard.